Hello everyone, welcome to Crypto Basics Coach podcast. I'm Marco. I'm here to help people navigate this topic so as to benefit from the opportunity this new technology provides and not get distracted or put off from the nonsense there is out there about crypto. Anything and everything presented and discussed, whether here or in our sessions, is of an educational nature and should never be taken as financial advice. Always do your due diligence and consult professionals before making any final decisions. Episode 7. Crypto is for all ages. One of the pleasurable things that I've been able to do with my life in my sport, my work, social, is that from day one, ever since I finished high school, I've worked with and interacted with all age groups. When I was in my 20s, I was interacting with people right up into their 70s. As I've gotten older, I'm still dealing with people who are in their teens, playing sport with people who are in their 20s. It's something that I've always felt comfortable with. So sort of understanding where people are coming from, just because I'm a different age to them, there's never been an issue. Definitely not one when I'm in a coaching, mentoring or managing position. So what's interesting about crypto is, of course, because I am talking to different people, different age groups, and different situations, is you always get asked the question, well, okay, great, I've looked into this. Crypto, I want to do something about it. I can see the potential. What do you suggest that I do? How do you suggest that I do it? And of course, not being a financial advisor, it's pretty hard to give very specific advice. I always couch things in a way that they need to understand where they're coming from, what their goals are, what their current hurdles are. And so what I've done is, rather than sitting here and presuming I know what your situation is, which I obviously can't, is that I'm going to give you some examples of people from various age groups as to how they've approached it, how they've looked to tackle crypto and utilize it in a way that will allow them to achieve what they want to. Not everyone is looking to invest, make a couple of $1 million and go and do some fishing on a retired island. Some people love their careers. Some people are passionate about becoming a doctor. Some are passionate about becoming an engineer. And that's going to give them their meaning and define who they are in life. The ideal is to be able to pursue these goals and dreams without having your salary determine the type of lifestyle that you lead. That's the ultimate. So if there is a passion in your life that you want to pursue, great. But wouldn't it be nice to have your salary not dictate what you decide to do with your holidays, where you decide to maybe take your family, if you're looking to set up your folks, whether it's even just deciding what present to give someone you care for. It'd be nice to be able to make it without constantly looking back at your salary and determining, how much money, what can I afford to do, what can't I afford to do. So I know plenty of people that would still continue their careers even if they have multiple millions, because that's what gives them passion. So what I've done is I'm going to give you some examples of, say, an 18-year-old to 30, a 30 to 50-year-old, and a 50-plus. It's going to be fairly generic, but you can see that it's a very complicated conversation. Each person is unique. Each person's situations is unique. And so, take this with a grain of salt, apply it to your situation, and at least it will start pointing you in the right direction. And if my voice sounds a little raspy this week, it's because I've not been feeling particularly well. But just like the bills never stop coming in, neither should we. So no excuses. This isn't supposed to be a big professional broadcast. It's about the content and the meaning. And I hope you can appreciate that. I like keeping it natural. So if you hear the intermittent murmur in my voice, that's what's been going on. So let's have a look at the 18 to 30-year-olds. And this is just typical, very generic, but you'd be looking to leave high school, perhaps go into uni. You'd be looking at maybe getting a first car, possibly moving out of home, starting a career for the first time. Some people in this age group would already be looking at starting a family. 1.2, 1.8 are the averages apparently. 2 kids, 3 kids, who knows? But you'll very quickly realize that kids equal expenses. You've also, if you're going into uni, and you will probably come out of uni in this age group, no doubt you'll have an appropriate fee that you now owe that you need to pay. So here's your start to life. Essentially, you've left high school, your expenses are going to skyrocket, and yet you're supposed to start carving out a career for yourself. Ideally, start meeting some short-term goals and plan for some long-term goals based on the salary. So what could you do? What have I seen some people in this age group do with crypto? Clearly, one of the strategies that's worthwhile pursuing is dollar cost averaging. For those who don't know what that is, ideally it's a situation where you set a certain amount of money aside, and every week or every month you make a purchase of the particular asset that you're interested in. And you know that sometimes you're going to pay up and sometimes you're going to pay down, but you've got the long-term view. And so you're not really fussed. You're not trading. You're not trying to squeeze every dollar out of it and stress yourself out. You're just parking some money aside. And the important thing is that you're accumulating. And if you've got good, solid choices of assets like gold, silver, but in particular certain cryptos, then it's more important for you at this age group to accumulate. Especially if you know you're going to be happy for the next 20, 30, 40 years in a particular career, then you're not so concerned about instant gratification. You're not concerned about, this has to move in the right direction in the short term, because you know you're doing this over the long haul. And clearly in this age group, one of the key advantages you have, and I've explained this to my boys as well, is in this area of your life, you're going to have the most amount of time that you'll ever have, right? We're all mortal. And you know that the longer time goes on, the closer you're becoming to the other end of the equation. So here you can dollar cost average, especially during bear markets when prices are low. So take advantage of the buying spree. Don't be like the herd and only buy when everyone's excited and your barber and the taxi driver and the butcher are all telling you to get into something. Quick hint, if you start hearing those conversations from those people, if you are ever going to sell, that's probably a good time to sell. Okay, so don't be fearful of markets reversing when you're holding good, solid assets. That's the time to buy. So stick with good, solid projects. At this age group, given the amount of money you may have available to you, I've seen people, and I agree, don't buy more than 2 or 3. You don't need 15, 18. You're only going to dilute your money and make it less effective. So stick to 2 or 3 key projects and accumulate them over time. Don't be looking at devices every single day and getting charts and everything. You'll just drive yourself nuts. That's not the purpose of your investment. I would suggest, and I've seen some people do this where, sure, they're going to accumulate, but we've talked about this in previous podcasts, have a little bit of DeFi. Start looking into DeFi. Even if you're just going to treat it as a savings account where you know you can pick up 4 or 5% for your money doing nothing. It's still doing more than what it's doing in a bank account these days. Okay, so have a look at DeFi, have a look at some of the options out there that you could be parking some stable coins and be earning at least 4 or 5% on that money. Okay, so make sure you're trying to make your money work as hard as you can. Ideally, only have as much as you need for your monthly expenses in your bank account. Make your money work for you. Now, as I mentioned before, from a crypto perspective, it's envisaged that by 2030, we're going to start seeing the most growth in this industry. So time is on your side. You've still got 4 or 5 years. The important thing is that accumulate for what you'll need later on, and it'll give you more decisions that you're able to make where you're not just relying on your salary. At this stage of your life, it's probably not as important to be spending thousands of dollars in setting up structures. What do I mean by that? Well, the sort of structures I'm referring to here are tax minimization structures, protection structures, family trusts, corporations, etc. And the key reason is that in this area of your life, you're probably more valued at putting as much money as you can into the investments of your choice, and then let the profits from those pay for the structures that you may need going further into the future. So if you've got a choice of spending $5,000 on good assets as opposed to $5,000 on a structure, at this stage of your life, probably going to do better with putting that money directly into the investment and worry about the structures later. Okay, we'll talk about them a little bit further on. And more importantly, you're at least then going to be using profits to create those, not money from your hard-earned income. Now let's have a look at the group between 30 and 50. What have I seen some of the people in this group do that I support? So this group is a little bit different. They've obviously been already maybe up to 12 years into their career, into life. So in this particular group, no doubt, this is probably the area of life where you're going to accumulate the most expenses, because you've got school kid fees, you've got increasing expenses from a bunch of area of your life. You might be also looking at, is there any way of getting an early retirement? You've no doubt looking to pay off your primary residence. Perhaps you've also got an investment property or two that no doubt is leveraged, like most are. You may have done particularly well and even afforded a holiday home, which again will be more debt. So this area of life tends to be fairly debt heavy. And so your focus, if you're starting off in this group, is you're coming from the perspective that hopefully you've had a successful career or are in the middle of a successful career. So you're making some decent dollars, you've got some discretionary income, but your expenses are quite high. And so is your debt. So in this instance, dollar cost averaging is just as important, especially if you're not looking to get out of what you're doing. If you enjoy what you do, but you're just wanting a little bit more room to breathe, then start dollar cost averaging, same principle as before. Pick, maybe because you're able to invest a little bit more at this stage of your life, you might increase 3 assets to 5, but again, I wouldn't go much further than that. You're after quality, not quantity. But in this instance, what you can do is, instead of just putting all your money into the better quality assets, you could probably put 5-10% of what you're committing to a lower cap coin. Okay, so no different to shares. In crypto, you've got your blue chips, you've got your brown or your green and then your brown. So in this instance, you might decide to maybe pick 1 or 2 smaller cap coins that may give you a bigger return down the track. But again, proper risk management in how to do that. And that's how you might increase your portfolio. You may put a larger percentage into DeFi, because one of the key reasons you're doing this is to ideally try and pay off more debt faster, okay, to get you into the positive. So if you can set up a little bit more in DeFi to give you those extra percentages, they'll make a difference over time, and you'll find that you'll get to a better place a lot faster and retire a lot of that debt a lot faster. In this particular age group as well, some people still have their uni fees to pay off. Okay, so as I say, this area of life tends to be fairly debt heavy for a lot of people. Consider at this stage too, for those who are getting into crypto, you may have already been quite prudent, and you may have already been investing in shares, in property, as I mentioned, investment properties, a holiday home, etc., etc. So depending on your goals and depending on your ambitions, you may be in a position where you could possibly, and this is individual and part of risk management, speak to all the professional advisors, you might decide that you need to change tack. You may decide to cash in on some of these other investments you have so that you can put more towards crypto rather than just using whatever discretionary income you have as the people in the 18 to 30 did before. So in this instance, you're using passive incomes to shift career. You may have alternatives that are a different career that you're wanting, but because it pays less, now that you're stuck with all the debt, you don't have that choice. But if you can use DeFi to create some extra income, you might be able to actually pivot your career. Or it could be that you stay in the same career but work 3 days a week, not 5 days. Okay, so there's lots of different ways that you can use the asset appreciative nature of crypto, but also the DeFi, regular income of crypto, to give yourself different choices to whatever suits you. In this age group, probably because you've already got an investment portfolio, maybe because you've in this age group too, what can happen is that you're more likely to come into an inheritance. Okay, so this age group has a few more choices that they can make around wealth building, wealth creation. The point I wanted to make around this is that you're probably in a situation where you may want to consider setting up the right investment structures if you don't already have them. Okay, So I know a lot of people like buying stuff in their own name, and they've got the gold in their own name, they've got the houses in their own name, and God forbid they're ever sued, touch wood. But if you don't already have proper investment structures, then you'd best learn about them real quick. And you may decide to get those in place or utilize the ones you have to put your crypto into them as well from day one. People of this age group too will have already had their superannuation. For those of you who are not from Australia, superannuation is a retirement plan similar to the 401k in the States. And so you may be looking at using that as well. You might be consider moving that into a self-managed super environment so you have a bit more say as to what you can do with it. So you can see that at this age group, there are more choices to make. There are more alternatives. No doubt you're carrying more debt, but here, yes, I agree with the people I've seen who start to put the right structures in place from day one, and that way they can handle capital gains and income tax and other things in a far more efficient manner. Probably also because they're putting larger amounts into the investments than the 18 to 30-year-olds. So I hope that makes sense as a general guide of what I've seen people do in this particular age group. And now you've got the Goldie Oldies, which are the 50 plus. And I say that with a smirk because I'm in that age group and there's nothing golden about us, trust us. So in this group, very, very different. Priorities are very different. Typically kids' school fees are no longer an issue. Potentially the primary residence is paid off. Bottom line is that your priorities are different in this particular age group. And if you have been already investing, you've got a very different looking portfolio. And you're probably more conscious about risk management because you're looking at, protecting what you already have rather than creating something like the previous two age groups. But there are a lot of 50-year-olds, 50 plus, that are still paying off debt, their primary residence being one of them. They may on paper look fantastic, especially to the banks, where they may have 4, 5 investment properties. But between you and me, they're leveraged to the hilt. So they look fantastic in terms of assets. And a term I heard a long time ago was asset rich, cash flow poor. Okay. And some of you who hear this are going to go, oh yeah, tell me about it. So just because they look good to the bank, that doesn't mean that life is necessarily enabling them to have the choices they want, because they're heavily into debt with the idea of heading towards retirement. And so they've got different issues, different priorities. They're very, very keen to pay off the debt so they can enjoy retirement. They may also have had a gutful of the job and the career. Yes, it was appealing once, but now look, if it could be over, please. So their priorities are different. Meeting the requirements of retirement, whatever retirement is for you, whether you want to travel the world, you want to travel in first class, you want to shack with a fishing pole, whatever it is, that's up to you. But you'll be more sensitive to this age group that are looking to do that. And something else that's important to this particular age group is, of course, going back to that mortality topic that I raised earlier, is they're more interested in estate planning and succession planning. In other words, what are they going to do with this wealth once they're gone? Who do they want to give it to? Who should have the right to do anything with it? So estate planning, succession planning, obviously tax minimization and so forth is important as well, but these are also important at this age because you're looking at potentially leaving an inheritance to your kids. If you've done really, really well, you're talking about generational wealth, which means, well, how are the people going to look after this after you're gone? So with this age group, what I've seen being applied, again, I fully support, is that there's a shift usually from existing portfolio structures where maybe all they've ever done is invested in property their whole life. So in this instance, they may have a good income or they may not. So what they're looking to do is readjust their portfolio. If they're 90 to 95% in property, they might decide that it's time to, cop a bit of capital gains on the chin, sell a couple of the properties to diversify their portfolio and start moving some of it into precious metals or into crypto. So what goes along with that, of course, is that you're talking about far larger amounts that you're looking to invest in one go. And I won't go too into it here, but instead of just going on to a normal exchange and just trying to purchase $100,000 or something, there's something called over-the-counter. And that's something I seriously consider you looking into if you're looking at using large amounts of money, because it'll give you a much better price, usually for a better fee. So that's something that you should look into because of the quantity that you're purchasing. But essentially, you're going to rebalance your portfolio. Okay, you won't necessarily have that much extra discretionary income that you can use, so use the assets wisely that you've got. Okay, and there's for years I've heard people go property, property, property. I've also met people, shares, 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 and then I've met people gold, gold, gold. Guys, please, let's just cut through the crap. You need to have a bit of everything. Okay, forget this idea of, you just need one asset. As long as you've got that one asset, you'll do fine. Okay, that's very limited thinking. It's limited education. It actually drives me really, really frustrated when I hear people say that, because usually it just shows that they've got a huge amount of ignorance on the other asset classes. Okay, there it is. I've said it. So I've seen it happen years and years and years, and depending which data you want to use, which statistics you want to use, which graphs you want to use, everyone can justify their own excuses. Don't. You should have a balanced portfolio. Things move in cycles, and not all cycles move assets in the same way. Okay, so in this instance, by all means, keep some property, keep some shares, but get diversified into crypto. Okay, it's going to do you well, and it's a different asset class that you should have exposure to. And recently, we've seen many, many, many institutions also recognizing that, where they're recommending to their customers and their clients that they start transferring 5%, 10%, 20% into crypto. All right, so follow the smart money, start doing the same as them. Again, stick with solid projects. Just because you've got more money to inject doesn't mean you need to go picking meme coins or rubbish that, yes, couldn't grow 1,000 times. And you can also do your money as well. Okay, there's no need at this stage to get silly just because you've got more money to invest. Get with the solid projects. Because of the quantities, though, you might decide to stretch it out to 6, 8 different assets if you want to, right? There's nothing wrong with sticking with 3. Okay, so you do what feels comfortable to you. The big shift here, though, may be that you might put more into DeFi. Why? Well, because putting more into DeFi and given you've got larger quantities to be able to invest, you might find yourself being able to essentially pay yourself out of a job. And if you are looking for early retirement, this might be one way of doing it. Okay, so you might again look at your portfolio, do all the maths, and work out that, with a certain amount put into DeFi, guess what? I've actually replaced my income. And then you can decide what you want to do. If you want to work for free, go work for free, if you love it so much. If not, then go and do something else that is worth your time. In this particular stage of your life as well, clearly tax structures are going to be important, especially if you're moving one asset to another. So sit down with your accountant, sit down with your professional advisor, figure it out, make sure you do have the appropriate structures in place, especially from an estate planning, succession planning perspective. Part of that, by the way, could be the people you're leaving it to, have you been doing anything about educating them? Or is your family going to be like the normal statistics that you've built it and then your kids go and lose it all? It happens. Many, many, many examples of where that happens. So your planning is not just about structures and maths. It's about how do you pass on the education you've acquired to create this wealth onto the next generation that ideally should be increasing it, and hence you're creating generational wealth. One of the other things that people in this age group, it has to be appreciated, is that in this age group, they're not as tech savvy. And I don't mean to say that as they're not bright, they're not intelligent, they're just not used to technology the same way as other groups are. So the reason I bring this up is that whereas the previous group should be saying, yeah, go get a cold storage device, yeah, press these buttons, do this format, use this protocol, click here, click there, bring this up on a browser, blah, 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 blah. This group, okay, you may want to be looking for services similar to Caleb and Brown where they're a bit more hands-on. You have a broker, okay, they're a bit simpler. They're in a format where you're used to dealing with like a CommSec, which is a trading platform here in Australia, where, you essentially have a brokerage account, you get on, you execute orders, and it's all nice and simple. You're not having to play with any new technologies. It's all very familiar to you, okay? And at this, taking that into consideration, one of the things you might also consider is perhaps some ETFs. Now, for those of you who don't know, An ETF stands for an exchange-traded fund. An exchange-traded fund is something that sits underneath an exchange-traded product, an ETP. And these are just, for the purpose of this example, these are just glorified funds that you can get on the open stock market that you can invest in. Like there's an ETF for gold. If you don't want to sit there and go buy your gold and store it somewhere, you can still have exposure to gold by buying a product, a fund on the stock exchange that invests in gold. Well, in the last 3 months, I've seen more products come out of the traditional financial institutions regarding crypto than I've ever seen before. So there are some good ETFs that if you don't want to get too complicated, but you still want exposure to crypto, and you don't want to have to go through the rigmarole of learning all this other technology, then go and invest through these ETFs. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's a very similar product. If your financial advisor can't talk to you about them now because they're not on that person's list of things they're allowed to talk to you about, well, maybe change advisor. Or in the next few months, you'll be surprised she'll knock on your door and go, hey, guess what? I've got something new you should invest in. And guess what? The conversation will be, I think it'd be prudent if you could move 5-10% of your portfolio into these sorts of products. And so there's a way for you guys to, get over the technical hurdles of cold storage and everything else that goes with it and potentially invest directly. Now, there's pros and cons with ETFs. Don't need to get into them here. However, I'm just highlighting that this age group, for various reasons, those sorts of products may be more appropriate than other groups. Now, hopefully that gives you a good overview. And that's all this was meant to be. It was an overview. Hopefully in one of those 3 age groups, you find yourself, you can relate to that area, or you can possibly pick aspects of each age group that already ring true to you. And hopefully I've been able to provide enough examples of how you may navigate your options if you're first getting into crypto at the various ages that I've mentioned. Last week's homework was supposed to be go off and look at tokenization. If you've spent any time looking at it, you'll start to understand why everyone who's been in crypto for a while is extremely bullish and why everyone is saying that this asset class is just going to be phenomenal, and it's not just based on hype. When you understand tokenization, you'll understand why and how some of these chains are going to be absorbing tremendous amount of wealth, and hence why they will become very, very valuable and expensive themselves, and how you'll do well. So for those who have gone off and looked into tokenization, I hope you had quite a few wow moments because it's quite amazing, just utterly transformational. This week, what I would like you to go and do for understanding and education is inflation. I want you to go and have a look at inflation and come back with the answer. Is it that prices are going up, or is it that the dollar value is going down? Okay, now I know that confuses a lot of people. They go, what do you mean the dollar's going down? I had $10 in the bank 10 months ago. I've still got $10 in the bank. I need you to be thinking of purchasing power. Okay, a lot of people misunderstand inflation, what causes it, what it is, and how you possibly are getting ripped off without knowing about it because, as I mentioned, you keep looking at your bank balance and you're like, well, it's still the same. So what do you mean I've got less money? Go and look into that. Once you get your head around inflation and what's going on and what you need to be doing to increase your cash flow and your value to just keep up, you will start to think about money quite differently. Thanks for today. I'll speak to you guys in 7 days, hopefully with a less raspy voice. Always good to chat with you. Take care.
If you found this information helpful and are interested in a more hand-holding approach while navigating this complex industry, please visit cryptobasicscoach.com, that's basics with an S, and book a session. The first 30-minute session is free, and we can get to know each other, talk about what your aims are, what you're looking to do, and how I might be able to possibly help. I've helped people get started, set up exchange accounts, wallets, DeFi platforms, and general knowledge. Look forward to speaking with you. Cheers.